Hyderabad, please raise your hands. Make some noise for representing wherever you're from. Come on, away team. Little bit more energy. Let's try that again. Everyone from the away team, make some noise. Okay, awesome. Look to your left, look to your right, say hello. Nice, greet each other with a smile, shake hands. We're all here today, beautiful. Time's correct. Little 10 minutes here and there, it'll go. But can I see all of your lanyards up in the air? Everybody, just your ID cards, whichever you've got registered, right? If you all look into that lanyard, you'll find a lunch coupon. Okay? Very important. You'll be served lunch at 1:20 p.m. The coupons are super important. You're going to hand that over, grab your plate, and then we're going to have a meal together. Does that sound exciting? Yes? Yeah. All right, awesome. That's the kind of energy we need. How many of you all had your breakfast? All right, for all of those who didn't have breakfast, I appreciate you all. For skipping breakfast to be here. So once again, put your hands together for all the participants out here. Let's make some noise for the organizing team at Unravel. A big shout out to JetBrains, who's our community partner, and also Confub, who's our ticketing partner. Yes? So we have a lineup of a lot of beautiful speakers that's going to come up and discuss everything DataOps related, right? A little bit of housekeeping rules. If anyone wants to use the restrooms, they're at that corner. All right. Also, if you have any questions, wait till the end of the session or when the speaker's done with their talk. And you'll also have a Slido application where you can submit your questions. We'll get into that as the day progresses. Right now, I'm in conversation with you as we have a cool video that's going to show up in a few minutes. Till then, I'm just here talking to all of you all. In the meantime, I need everyone to put your hands together in 3, 2, 1, clap once. Nine. Please. Right, so as you can see, we're going to be kick-starting almost on time. This is Indian stretchable time as usual, but we're still here waiting for all the beautiful participants to step in real quick. So we're going to have the first few sessions. As you can see, you can also find the agenda on the QR code on your lanyards. You can take your phone, Google Lens. You can scan that to get a detailed idea of the speakers for the day. A little bit of housekeeping rules that we'd like to follow. I'd like everyone to put your phones on silent or really turn down the volume for the rest of the day. Also, once again, the coupons, the lunch coupons, please keep that safe. That's going to be 5 minutes at the end of each session for your questions. Also, a big round of applause for our sponsors. Unravel Data, come on guys, put your hands together for Unravel Data, and the community partner JetBrains, and our ticketing partner Confab. We're going to have two booths. I mean, currently this will be one of the main booths. This will be the DataOps clinic. So I'll give you more details on what exactly that's going to be about. And also, if you have any questions, you can see the gentleman there with the Unravel t-shirt. We have a lot of fantastic people from the team coming in to support you all. If you have any questions at all, you reach out to the people with the Unravel t-shirts. Yes?
Thanks, Sunil, and thanks, everyone. Just in case. I'm told that I usually speak very loud, so let's see how this goes, right? First and foremost, welcome. And thanks to everyone for being here. This is a great opportunity for all of us here to learn about many things through the course of the day. In fact, one of my favorite things from the conference that was organized in Bangalore last year, right? That's me organizing a panel, and if you read what the title of that panel is, right, for those of you who can see that, right? DataOps Observability, Old Wine in a New Bottle, or the next best thing. The sheer fact that maybe we are having a second edition probably means that it's an opportunity, and this time what we thought was, hey, we had the last edition in Bangalore. Let's pick enough do, right? But last year I had the opportunity to visit again. More than 2 decades later, it's just amazing how the city has transformed, has grown, right? All that intellectual, all that business, all that investment in growth and innovation, it's just truly amazing. We thought, for a conference where we also want to grow and bring the community together, what a better venue than Hyderabad. Right? Now, why are we all here? It's probably clear to every one of you, right? If not, that should be the first topic of discussion, is data is indeed driving huge growth and innovation in business. It's truly driving business success. Every company today is a data company. In fact, I remember when I was giving the keynote last time, data is now eating the world, not software, right? And so many examples around us. How many of you here have tried out GitHub Copilot? Seems like it's this side of the room, so that side of the room needs to try out GitHub Copilot, right? So GitHub Copilot is it's a AI-based pair programming, but let's forget all those terms, right? It's just a way in which you can use the tremendous amount of data sitting in GitHub. So all the code kind of in the world, right, pretty much sits in GitHub or some version of it. How can you use that data to make developers productive? Reduce the time they are spending in checking things, finding things, debugging, make them truly productive, right? Nubank, many of you may not have heard of it. It's a bank, it's a new modern kind of a bank in Brazil and Latin America, right? They are transforming the entire banking industry with data, like are many other similar companies, right? What they thought they will need 5 years to do, just investing in data enabled them to do in 2 years. That's amazing, right? And of course, most of you, I'm not going to ask that question, right? Most of you should be trying or should be using ChatGPT. The company behind it, OpenAI, and all the work that's gone into it, it's all based on data again. Data and AI coming together. But that's all the nice shiny stuff you hear about, right? But is it really easy making all of that happen? And for those of you who are fond of movies, right? Those are like the Amitabh Bachchans, right? You see all the greatness, or if you're into into sports, like the Messi, right? But for them to do their work and all that glitz and glory that seemingly comes, there is a lot of work, lot of teams, lot of people who have to work under the covers. And for that, for data, all the success you are driving around data, you need what is today called a modern data stack. Okay? What is the modern data stack? It's the newer set of systems, right? For AI, there are new technologies, or for warehousing, there are the likes of Spark and Google BigQuery, and for orchestration, there are the likes of Airflow and Prefect and Daxter. You just start thinking, right? This is I'm sure many of you can't read the things in here. If I were to show you what the modern technology's real picture looks like, I can guarantee that nobody will be able to read anything, right? So many technologies, but what are these technologies doing? They are making it, seemingly, they're making it easy to work with data, do all those cool things with data. But because you have such a interesting stack, right, you can do great things. What are those great things? You can actually move faster, generate insights faster, right? You can, a lot of actually cool things with data often requires connecting many different data sets. And sometimes these are data sets across organizations, or embedding machine learning and AI, right? All those great stuff can be done with this data stack. But there's always a but, right? And that comes from, to get performance, that is finishing your applications on time, running these, what are called the SLAs. Yesterday we were actually meeting with one of the leading the banks in Asia, and they were saying how much thought has to go in to ship any new kind of innovation around data, because if you don't do things right, you get slapped with penalties. So performance, right? The reliability on in today's economic condition, the cost effectiveness, getting that can be, right? Complexity, that's another distributed systems, right? So all of these systems are sort of coming together and being tied by a data pipeline or multiple data pipelines, and that always be a first, I'm sure. So if you are a leader and you own a large data stack, right, which is extremely mission critical, you may not be able to cut back on usage because data never stops. The need for all these apps never stops, which means then if you don't have good visibility, your spends will keep increasing. Coupled with that, all the challenges we talked about, right? Large distributed systems, not enough talented people, or not enough people who are fastest growing. components, both in terms of cost and in terms of importance in today's, every enterprise, right? Cost of failure can be extremely high. Like, I'm sure many of you have these great stories to share. Right? We have had, one of our customers actually tell us, on one query, I'll not name the system, but on one query that a user ran, it costed them $70,000. So runaway rogue query, right? And maybe you have your own such horror stories to share, right? So cost can have a huge implication, and we have seen incidents where people are shutting down their environments, right? Including us at Unravel. And Giri, who's sitting right in front, right? He's actually our FinOps leader who will shut down an instance without even asking if costs are actually looking getting too high. Right? So all of these are challenges that are faced, and many such ones, if costs are high, then your margins may be low, and that might actually impact business decisions. Migrations to the cloud may fail or be in the data side, the chief data officer, the chief analytics officer with the VP of data engineering, right? If you are in the IT department, right, the chief information officer may be concerned about the same thing. Like, I need to understand where these costs are going. I need to understand how can I, she may be working with the architects. There's in many companies, there is a cloud center of excellence, right? That may be the team that's trying to ensure that these costs don't really get out of control or become surprises. Of course, the CFO and the finance teams are extremely concerned about it, right? And all of this ends up putting pressure on the data team, right? They are tasked with doing all of that cool innovation, right? You want to build the new AI, new innovation, new drug discoveries, new ways to prevent fraud. But you're getting pressure from all of these sides, or cost, or data reliability and quality, and especially when it's hard to get teams, get talented people to work on this, and teams to work together. You can imagine the kind of scale of problem we are talking about. What is the solution? Right? Why are we all here talking about data, data ops, and observability, right? So one solution that was actually a lot of the focus in the past version of our conference is the terminology is data ops, right? Why that combination of words? It's not just about building those new applications, right? It's about everything that goes, all that operational work that has to be streamlined, that has to be made easy to ensure that the applications can ship on time, they are efficient in terms of performance, they're reliable. And typically, the way in which this is kind of thought through is, data ops, the term comes from DevOps, right? DevOps, which kind of revolutionized software delivery by putting clear definition of roles, by putting a clear process. Data ops is trying to do that for the data world, the data stack, and all who would be creating those applications, but really not just creating the applications, operationalizing it, building those pipelines, as well as the data operations team. So they work together, and the way the unit of coordination may be understanding the pipeline, making it easy to develop, and to bring a lot of new needs of the business, especially, right? Driving the right amount of revenue at the right cost effectiveness point. In fact, this is another big change that's come over the last 2 years. More and more companies are now emphasizing efficient growth over just throw money and grow at any cost. And you must be familiar with a lot of the failures that have happened when this discipline was not there. So FinOps is the name that people use for all that, looking at everything in operations, especially from the finance lens. And this is a way in which the community, the FinOps community, thinks about the overall, how to solve these problems. So they think about inform, just understanding where all of these costs are going, optimization, understanding where inefficiencies are and how to optimize it, and very importantly, the operationalizing part, which is all about how do you take all of those principles and ensure that you're not getting surprised, and the entire financial, the cost consciousness is built in the full process, right? And the teams that are involved here are often come from the business side as well as the architects, right? But unfortunately, given that we have data ops and FinOps and actually some of those other ops that actually can help here, a challenge is that often in many companies, these two teams are very disparate. They are often siloed. It may be homegrown solutions, or it may be some custom or commercial solutions, but being used by the data teams on one side, and maybe another set of solutions. I want to put out there is what if, right? What if we are able to bring these two disciplines together and really have them be applied on the data stack, right? So data and FinOps coming together, and what will that change? What can making it super easy tool and things like that, making it super taken care of. So that is can be data FinOps, fine-grained understanding and visibility. Truly, what it does is it makes all of that be high, right? So that is the kind of the holy grail of bringing these things together. It turns out that others, it's a little bit more complex. I'm not going to go into the details, but they are also as they interact with the different businesses, they're also seeing how these different teams not interacting together actually is limiting the business value. So they are also coming up with ideas like this, but ideas are great, right? I'm sure you have a bunch of ideas too. It's all about how do we make it happen. And in this conference, if I didn't tell you that the answer is AI, right? Not only would you not believe me, but probably a bunch of you will leave the room, right? So the answer, it turns out, is AI. But once again, how, right? AI at a very high level is really again, I'm not simplifying it to actually make it look trivial or easy. It's about data and models. Okay? Where does that data come from? We saw this entire modern data stack, right? There is no dearth of observability, monitoring, telemetry kind of data. Right? And the other, of course, would be based on language models, which is what is backing the likes of GPT and ChatGPT and things like that, right? So let's take a step and let's drill down this into a little more detail here. Data models, right? The best way to think of that is, again, if we come back to our modern data stack, right? And all the components in this data stack and all the data that we can collect around it. Right? I like to think of a data model, the acronym, I like to think of as DART, D-A-R-T, where the D comes from. If you think about that entire stack, there are a lot of data assets in it, right? Your tables and files and things like that. So that is who is the user, the use case, on behalf of which these entire applications are being run. So as examples, right, as I mentioned, data can be a database or a file or a machine learning model, right? So these are all the data assets, right? The applications could be a Spark application, a SQL application, or it could be your BI worksheet. So those could be the applications, not to mention pipelines, right? Resources can be your your clusters, your containers, storage, networking resources, and tenants can be an entire project, right, or a user. Right? So once you start thinking of this kind of abstraction on top of that entire modern data stack, right, that's what DART is about, and that's what the data model is about. Now you can start to think about, hey, in that stack, maybe there is a project that's running 5 pipelines. So the project is the tenant, the pipelines are the apps. Each app is running on a interactive cluster in Databricks, and that's accessing 5 tables. So you can start to take that entire messy world of the data stack and all that observability data and start to kind of make sense of it in a easier way to understand, easier way to correlate one thing with the other, right? And let's take a few examples to flesh that out a little bit more, right? To understand how when in this world you can bring a data model, you can then start to think about algorithms on top of that data model, right? One problem, entity extraction. This is a very common problem. The name comes from often things like natural language processing or data integration, where you want to sort of extract entities, right, from some larger corpus, right? An entity may be a user, entity may be a name of a drug and things like that, right? In our observability example, I'll just pose a very simple example. So these are actually names. This is actually coming from a real customer environment, right? These are names of the applications that run every day, right? So just look at it. It seems like 3 applications ran. But if you really look at it carefully, right, it's the DLY RTF process V2, right? That last string keeps changing, but it doesn't take, I'm sure, any of you to quickly look at it and realize that seems like it is representing a date or a time, right? So if you really kind of look at it for some time, you realize that if from the observability perspective you're seeing an app run daily, you may be thinking it's a different app, but if you extract those entities out, those transient things out daily, you can build a baseline. You can actually now detect, hey, today's run is taking much longer than the baseline. And before it becomes a fire and the SLA is missed, you can actually send an alert and have somebody work on it, right? Extremely simple example, although not too simple, as you can see, of how if you had a notion of these are names of applications, right? And names of applications could have a constant part and some transient entities in it. If you extract out those transient entities, you can start to relate different runs into the same application and build a lot of anomaly detection techniques on top, right? Maybe today's cost is much higher because something changed, and I want to detect that and cut it off if I knew the baseline, right? Another problem, dependencies and understanding the entire lineage, right? So this is very again an important problem to solve. It's not an easy problem to solve. And I have this favorite picture to show. It's from it's actually it's a nice blog post from Intuit, right? Where they showed how their pipeline represents one job in a larger pipeline that's computing something. And if we are stuck looking at one thing at a time, SQL queries, right? This is what the approach that Intuit and map it to business, right? A lot of great things can be done. 3, extracting features, right, for the different entities. This is again a quick screenshot from a data pipeline that again so happens one of our customers is running. But the key thing I want you to see here is a lot of the time the cloud platforms do not associate cost with applications. They associate cost with resources, right? Now, unfortunately for the business, that doesn't help. They must be running 5 pipelines on the same cluster. If they can't understand the cost at the application level, they can't start to optimize it, they can't start to do chargeback, they can't start to do what a lot of business want to do, attribute unit cost. So you can scale up your application and resources and cost based on demand, right? So extracting a feature like this, cost of an application, again is an interesting and not trivial problem. It becomes easier when you're able to think about data model. This is an application, multiple applications may be running together, so I can start to tease apart the resource usage to this application level, right? Lots of opportunities for feature extraction. The even harder are all these different kinds of insights, right? How can you tell if the application is not using the right configuration, the right sizing of cluster, right, SQL plan and whatnot? A lot of opportunities for analyzing this data and then giving insights. But if you look at this insight has to be aware of the fact that an application is running, it is using it's using a cluster with a certain kind of resources, let's say on the cloud or machines. And maybe another machine type is better. See, once again, if you have a data model that connects these things together, you can start to think about solutions to those problems by applying algorithms. And of course, the holy grail often is automation. Like, who has the time to look at these things and apply these things, right? It wouldn't be great if things were like that self-driving car. So you can specify policy and it will be automated. A quick example, automation need not be the self-driving car all the time. Automation can even be like taking the insights, integrating it in a CI/CD process, so that when the developer is making a change to the code, right then and there, you could give them an insight. Maybe you're not picking the right type of containers, size. So in production, this could become a problem. Because at that point of time, they're highly incentivized to act. So automation, we get often carried away by trying to make it completely self-tuning. But automation can even be automate the process. Right? And then you'll get a tremendous amount of value, right? So hopefully you got a sense of, if you take again, think about models, take the notion of building a data model and then applying algorithms. A lot of this data is actually text. SQL is text. It's kind of structured text. What is text? Logs are text. Well, metrics are they are metrics, but you can often treat them as not just unstructured this thing, but a more structured text. Schema. All of that is text, right? So seemingly you can actually. I am not agree, right? What did it say? It said, sorry, I didn't really understand that part. Seems like the name of the application is not given and things like that. Wasn't very impressive. But then I asked the next question, which is, what is common among these three? And the answer was amazing. See, it said, based on examples, the commonality is that these three appear to follow the same naming pattern. It could even tell me that the pattern is this text followed by a date and a timestamp. Right? It even could tell me that the naming convention suggests that these examples may be different versions of the same instance of the same process or application. Right? That's the power of bringing something again, I'm not once again trivializing it, but hopefully you get the idea, right? If you start to think about the problem with the right mindset, right, you can actually do quite a lot. But that just doesn't just mean that, well, you just take all of this text data, throw it into ChatGPT and you'll get good answers. You really have to think about what exactly is the problem you're solving, and if this answer will actually enable, if it's the right answer or not, or at least is guiding you in the right way, so you can solve the larger problem. Which actually brings us that open, interesting research question. From the Unravel side, we are working on some of these, but this is really I would like to pose this as a challenge to the community, right? How many of these problems that arise in observability, many of these problems, if solved well, can truly make a difference in the data observability and in the FinOps kind of space, right? Can that be solved using a language model? In fact, the even more interesting question to ask is, why just apply this or that, right? Data models can do interesting things if you know the domain and a broad experience. They have learned it over time. They have seen this, they have seen that, right? So given a problem, they can actually quickly understand which solutions will not work, which is the way to kind of go, right? And once you actually identify that, you can give that to a more like a specialist who can kind of say, look, again, if you have to tune a particular query, right? Maybe index is the right way to go, or tuning the query itself has to be rewritten. That's the right way to go. And then a specialist can come in and take that and maybe give a solution that truly works. Get given that idea, right? A lot of interesting ways in which things can be combined. And that brings me to the exciting conference schedule that we have today. We have, I know you can't read this, but you can read the it on the conference page itself, so I'll verbalize it for you. We have Anuj, who will be telling us about a lot of innovation in DataOps and AI. In fact, he's a specialist in natural language processing. So that's a talk I'm really looking forward to, how some of these things we talked about can be probably operationalized on more challenging problems there. We have two interesting panels, a panel on FinOps and a panel on DataOps, and some of these questions will come up, but I encourage all of you, we want to keep the panels very interactive. Ask your questions, like, probe and probably share your thoughts and opinions as well. Then we have other talks being given. We have Snehit here who will be giving a talk. Kalyan will be sharing with us. Interesting stuff coming from practical experience on these problems. And we have a lot of other quizzes and fun things lined up. So we will have a DataOps observability clinic as well. Bring your problems and at least let's have a discussion on solutions. With that, I'm really looking forward to a fun and productive conference. Thank you. Questions?
Check, yeah. Hi, quickly could you just open the Slido QR code? The next slide, yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so if anyone has any questions, please raise your hands. And in the meantime, I want everyone to take out your phone, Google Lens, and just scan the QR. So this will redirect you to slido.com. So we have a live questionnaire chat that's active. In the back there has, yeah. Okay, so setting Slido aside, anyone has any questions for Mr. Shivnath here? Yeah, there. It would be great if you could hear your name, where you're from, and
myself, Raghu Reddy.
Hi.
So data, AI, everything is a buzzword, but what about the security concerns today now the industry is facing with respect to the OpenAI or all those particular AI models? So how can we integrate or address these particular issues?
So when we say reliability, I like to actually think of more as how do we address risk? So one element of risk is what in the data observability world everybody talks about, that is the quality of data. But the other element of risk is exactly what you're talking about, security and privacy, right? So we see data leaders definitely are interested in that. And it's the same data, all this observability data along with the security and security kind of logs. That same data and approaches can be used to solve the security and privacy problems as well. Of course, the algorithms will be different. So the same time, the reliability of the data and the results continue to remain important. The security and privacy is absolutely an extremely important problem. Now, in the conference, we would love to hear about any thoughts and questions on that. Right? Maybe the next edition can focus on security a little bit more. The earlier one focused on the data quality a little bit more. I think this version may focus on the cost a little bit more. Maybe the next version can be on security. So it's an important problem. Solutions can actually be built in a very similar fashion like what we are doing here, but that needs to be talked about and thought through by the community. Any other questions I can take?
Cloud environments with respect to Google Cloud or AWS. So do you have the Unravel ready for deployment on the Google Cloud?
That question was very specific about Unravel, and one thing I want to kind of clarify from the get-go is that, again, we are proud to host the conference. At the same time, it's not about Unravel itself.
Okay.
I would love to share more details, but given that you asked, right? It is, yes, we do support all the clouds, including the Google Cloud as well. Now, taking a step back and talking about the observability problems and the cost problems, that example I showed about that $70,000 query, that was actually on BigQuery, on GCP Cloud.
Okay. Great, thank you.
No more questions? No more comments?
We have a question on Slido. So.
We have a question on Slido.
Yeah, so Shivnath, it's an open-ended question. So in this entire session on data observability, the folks asking, how can we measure success here?
That is I would say an awesome question, right? Like a lot of the time, again, I don't know how many of you heard it. I have two hats. I have a hat as a CTO, and I also have a hat as a adjunct professor of computer science, right? So a lot of work that happens in academia often is done without really thinking about all the business value and business impact. Truly, impact has to be measured by, I would say, two dimensions. One is what impact are we having on the business, the society, right? But at the same time, we should just not get carried away totally by that. We should also invest. If you're not investing in a little bit more open-ended problems, then we'll never have true success. Defining KPIs of success is probably, not having done that clearly, is probably one of the top reasons why many of these AI projects fail. So at least my suggestion, especially if you're in the industry, is whenever you take any of these problems, first define what that success is. Let's take entity, entity extraction as a problem, right? You have to start by defining what success means. It could be that just identifying all those application names correctly, and immediately you can start to think about the false positive rate and false negative rate. That can be defined as the KPIs that you're kind of shooting for. But if you don't have an idea of the success KPIs, then there's a very good chance that the project will fail because you can't even quantify whether what you delivered was truly useful or not, right? So this is, again, a question I would love many of you to ask.
Thanks, Shivnath. Yeah, there's one more question on Slido. So in this data world, how transparent can we be with the data owners in the matter of privacy?
That's actually a question that the panelists will dive into. I'll use that as a way to advertise the data ops and data observability panel that's coming up in the afternoon. So maybe I'll hold off the question until then.
Sure. Yeah. That's it on Slido.
Any other comments I can take?
I'll ask a simple question here. So one of the big challenges we've had is to predict the cost of modeling over data, right? So many times customers will come up and say, hey, we have 2 terabytes of data. What can we do with it? And then insights you've had, because I think Unravel has a really interesting way of analyzing this thing. So what insights have you had in, figuring out what finances should we, data modeling, data exploration is very open-ended. So how do you capture that part in your whole FinOps?
It's a great question. I would say, again, another open-ended question. I can give 2 things that come to mind. One is, there's a lot of emphasis being put in the finance based on coming up with unit cost. And what unit costs are really kind of getting at that, how much am I spending and how can I relate that to the business need in a sense, right? Like maybe my model is giving credit scores. Problem gets harder and harder when you go early. Like I'm doing an exploratory project. What can I kind of do for that, right? Because I don't even know the potential value. So this is again a great question, which let's ask the panelists in the FinOps panel. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much. Once again, that's Professor Shivnath for us. He's also the CTO and co-founder of Unravel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to quickly stand up for a quick moment. Quickly stand up, guys. Hi, everyone. All right, just give yourself a nice stretch. It's still early in the day. Let's get the blood flowing. We're very used to sitting through the day, right? So go ahead. Just let it out. Just go, ha! Now I need the sound effect. That's when we're being genuinely stretching out and releasing the stress. Let's go, 3, 2, 1, ha! Okay, yeah, I like these new sound effects. Gilly, gilly, gilly and all this coming. That's super cool. Okay, so could I have the slide, please? All right, right now we have amazing prizes available. All right, there are going to be about 3 competitions that's going to be held. While I'm talking, just kick, stretch, And go ahead and sit down in the meantime if you're done with the stretches, but feel free to like move your hands. So we have three competitions that's going to be taking place. As you can see on screen, there's the LinkedIn competition. So for this, you're going to be tagging at Unravel space data space India, as well as at Unravel space data. All right. The hashtags that we're using: hashtag data geek, hashtag DataOps, hashtag DataOps observability. All right. This is on LinkedIn. Now, there are two intentions in place for you to participate, right? Number one, we're all DataOps enthusiasts. Yes. Yeah, we want to build a community. We're expanding the knowledge and awareness around this data community. The second thing is you get super cool prizes. All right, towards the end, we're going to be accumulating all of your posts which you put on LinkedIn, put it in a wheel of fortune, and then three lucky winners are going to get a set of prizes which I'll get to you, which I'll tell you in a few moments. Now, the second thing now is where we're going to have the tea and coffee break. In between that, we have a 15-minute DQ, right? Data quality quiz that's going to take place. Can I have the slide for that? Can I have the slide, the next one? All right, guys, so this is a link to a Google form. All right, so we're going to have three of these data, the DQ question quiz game that's going to happen. And each of these will have two winners. All right. So that's 3 sessions, total of 6 winners. So while you're going, grabbing a cup of coffee, it's going to have about 10 to 15 questions. So go ahead, it's going to test and tease your brain on how much understanding you have on your data universe. All right, so you can stand up, get the QR. It's going to be on screen, and the quiz is going to be open for 15 minutes. All right. All the very best. We're going to have a scoreboard also put up soon to kind of keep a track of the leaders for the DQ. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the meantime, you all can please go ahead, grab a cup of coffee, talk to each other. We're having a 15-minute break. Stretch out. This is going to be on screen, so you all can scan it at any time. It's going to be open for 15 minutes, and you all can get started. All the very best. So if you guys can still hear my voice. It's not opening. How many of you are having trouble with the QR? Please raise your hands. Also, the tea counter is towards the end of the hall. If to my left corner right there. You can go grab a cup of tea, some biscuits. And if anyone's facing any issues with the QR, the team with the Unravel badges would help you. Please fill in your details, and all the best with your participation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the prizes to be won. This is for the social media competition, that's the LinkedIn. And then there's also 2 other categories of competitions. One which is